All right, it says that we're live here, so hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. Let me know, please, in the comments if you can hear me. I'm using my going back to my mic setup from last month. It was a little buggy last month, so hopefully it works okay this month. But if not, let me know, and we will make adjustments as needed. But otherwise, hopefully you guys can see me, hear me okay, all that kind of stuff. Thanks to those of you who have already joined. Like any other live stream, this one will be going the same exact way, where I'll be doing taking priority with the comments that are super chats and stuff like that, and acknowledging those first, and then also, of course, answering as many of your questions as possible. And it's mostly just answering car questions and just kind of talking cars like we always do. So thanks to those of you who have joined already. I see Carlos is the first one here who commented. He's asking if he should buy a Camry XSE or the hybrid one and why. That really comes down to, how much power you want and, how much fuel economy you want to. They're obviously very different in that way. And so if you want something that's going to be a little bit on the sportier side, I believe you might be able to get a hybrid XSE. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing you're meaning either the 4-cylinder or the 6-cylinder XSE, and then the hybrid just being the standard version. I think, I personally would rather have the XSE, the sportier one, but if you're doing a lot of stop and go driving, you want to save a lot of money. The hybrids, Toyota hybrids are great. I love the RAV4 Prime. If you guys just saw that review, that was a lot of fun. And so Toyota does really good hybrid setups. BJ, thank you joining from Germany. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this live stream a little bit earlier than normal, is to help out all my friends over in Europe there who usually are asleep whenever I do these live streams later on at night here on the East Coast. So I'm happy you're able to join. And he says he's looking for a fun car. His choices are Mustang EcoBoost, Kia Stinger 2.0, Alfa Romeo Stelvio 2.0. And so between those three, it also kind of comes down to what you prefer. The Mustang, of course, is going to drive very differently because you have the rear-wheel drive dynamics that you don't get in the Stelvio. So the Stelvio is great if you want all-wheel drive, although maybe in Europe you guys get it with rear-wheel drive. I'm not sure. But yeah, and then the Stinger, whether you're going for rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive with those, that's going to be a lot more practical. It's going to be, I think they actually feel a little bit heavier than an EcoBoost Mustang does as well. So if you, like something that handles a little bit better, I think the Stinger might have, a little bit more weight to it. And, so that's just something, but you also have way more practicality. I think I love the Stinger, and I obviously love my Mustang. If I needed a 4-door car, the Stinger is probably what I would end up with. The Alphas are very appealing. Even like a Giulia is something that's tempting to me if I need a 4-door car. But I think with the Alfa Romeos, they are pretty reliable. They're not as bad as all the publications make them seem to be. If you go on Alfa Romeo forums, you'll see that there's a lot of people that have very reliable Alphas and no issues. But it's hard to argue with Kia. They have a 10-year warranty, at least here in the States, 100,000 miles. That gives you a lot of peace of mind with the powertrain with the Kias. And so if you want practicality, I would say Stinger. If you want something a little sportier and you don't care about having 4 doors and stuff, I think the Mustang EcoBoost is still fantastic value and a great choice. Rivik is asking, have you ever driven a Lotus? I have. I've driven a couple of different Lotuses, mainly just the Elises and Exige, but they're great cars. They're so much fun. I wish I could review one. I've drove them, over 10 years ago at this point, whenever I used to work at a car dealership, and they're fantastic. But I had one person offer a Lotus, but it didn't work out to review their Elise. So I'm hoping to review one someday. As far as comparing them to Porsches, the Lotus is just way lighter, even lighter than a Boxster. So you just feel that lightness. I didn't have a long drive in the Lotuses, admittedly, but I have ridden passenger in Lotuses for several hours in the past. And the Lotus, just the lightness is just amazing. And that's what you're going to really notice over the Porsche. I also really like the Lotus reliability because, with the Elise, you're running a Toyota engine, and the Lotus Elise is a pretty reliable vehicle. I think that's part of the reason why their resale values hold so strong. Porsches, like any other old German vehicle, can get very sketchy down the road out of their lease period and stuff. I think Porsches might be a little bit better than some, but I still don't think I would, hold on to a long time, hold on to a Porsche personally. But that's just me. So anyway, lots more comments here. I'm glad to see that so many of you are joining here. But first, I want to thank Tu Chang for his super chat. He says, I saw the Frontier with the V-Motion treatment. That's sweet. Maybe do you work at Nissan or something? You're able to see it early. I know there were some spy shots floating around here in the past couple of weeks, and it looks very blocky and boxy, and looks like it's going to be really great. Like I said in the weekly update, it's going to be interesting with the new Frontier, the new Ranger now coming, I guess, a year sooner than we were expecting, possibly coming next year. That whole mid-sized truck segment's really going to heat up, and hopefully Ram joins the fray eventually as well. But even with the current stuff, it's going to be great. I think hopefully Chevy's got something going on with the Colorado, because that little refresh they did is not going to help them compete once all these new trucks come out. But someone says, yo, is it Batman? Yeah, that is a Batman comic poster that then was made into a picture, something I got whenever I moved in here. But yeah, this is the other side of the office. Usually you guys don't see if you watch the weekly updates. So I got James Bond, I got Batman, and little other knickknacks here. All right, other things. Two Chang says, I sent you a picture on the gram, was just in a parking lot. Interesting. I very rarely check my DMs on Instagram, so I'll have to go back and check that. Usually email and Facebook is where I check more so, but I will definitely go into my DMs and try and find that. But thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I'll have to include it in the weekly update. Other questions here. We have Melsh says, hey, Matt, I think I have made the decision. I'm not going to tune the GTI when I get it. All I'm doing is a Cobb catback, an intake, and whatever cool looking wheels I can find for a good price. Sounds like a good plan. Yeah, I think GTIs, there's a lot of potential there if you do want to tune them. But again, with German stuff, I'd rather leave it stock, especially I'm not sure how old the GTI is that you have, but keeping it within the warranty is always a good idea as well if it has that new car warranty on it still. Trev, 9667 is excited for the Bronco tomorrow. I'm sure many of you are excited for that reveal tomorrow. Unfortunately, with the weekly updates always being on Friday, it's going to be very delayed by the time I actually talk about the Bronco on camera. But it sounds like it's going to be very promising, although I don't know if you guys saw, it was after the weekly update was posted, but Jeep just tweeted out a picture of a Wrangler with a 392 badge on the hood. It could be a Gladiator as well, I guess, but the 392 badge means it's going to have the 6.4 liter V8, which is something that many people have been wanting from the Wrangler and the Gladiator for a while, and it sounds like Jeep might give it to them, possibly because of the Bronco, to a way to one-up the Bronco, because it sounds like the Bronco is probably just going to have either 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder engines, and so that could be FCA's way of kind of being awesome and being like, all right, well, if you're not going to do the V8 Ford, we will, and kind of keep some of those Jeep customers loyal to Jeep instead of going over to the Bronco side. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out, but I thought that was kind of a brilliant one-up by Jeep to kind of just drop that without any comment. And it's kind of amazing. But I am excited for the Bronco tomorrow. I think it's going to be very awesome on its own. And this is the good thing about competition. The Jeep finally has competition, and that's what it took for them to be like, all right, fine, we'll put the V8 in it. And I'm glad they're doing that. This is why, I love competition with any kind of car company. Whenever you don't have any good competitors, they don't really have any reason to innovate because they're the only game in town. So I'm glad that there is now going to be some more competition. That Washer Nerd, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, how/who does your rolling shots? Got my G37 also. Congrats on the G37. The rolling shots are actually done. My sister films while my wife drives her car. So she's driving, my sister's in the passenger seat, just shooting out the window there. And we just kind of cruise down the road, and that's how we do them. So we keep it within the family, and it's a fun reason to hang out as well, to do the rolling shots together. But she's been doing them ever since I started those rolling shots and reviews, which probably was, I don't even know, like maybe 7 years ago was the first time I did a rolling shot. So that was the first time for that. And it was kind of funny because even before I got married, like my mom or dad was the ones that were driving back then, and my sister was filming out of the window in those very early reviews. So I'd always have to grab my mom to come do some rolling shots with me. It was kind of funny. So my family's always been very supportive of the channel, and I owe a lot to them. Other questions here. Marco is asking about C8Z news. Yeah, I think that all got pushed back because of COVID, about a year or so, because I think it was supposed to come out, maybe later this year. I think it's not coming till next year at some point now, which is unfortunate, but it'll be worth the wait. Because if you've seen the spy videos of it, like running up and down the canyons, it sounds phenomenal. And so, yeah, the C8 is an amazing vehicle. I was just talking to someone the other day about how awesome the C8 was, and I'm so lucky. That was like that wasn't the last press trip I went on before COVID, but that was like the last fun one before COVID hit. And I'm so glad I was able to, get that experience, be on the racetrack in the C8, film that amazing video for you guys, which by the way has been my most successful video of the year. So thank you guys for that as well. And yeah, so C8 is still a fantastic car, and I'm glad they're back to building them now. All right. The Car Banana 4 says, Matt, are you getting the next BRZ? Right now I don't have any room to buy any more cars or money for that matter. COVID has also hit YouTubers with the ad rates dropping and stuff, with a lot of advertisers pulling out and having lower budgets and stuff. So I've taken a pay cut as well. So there will not be any new cars until things recover for sure. And also we want to move so we have more garage space so I can actually garage the vehicles that I do buy down the road. But I am considering the next BRZ as a car to add alongside the Bullet. I will never get rid of the Bullet, but I am interested in what they do with the next BRZ, and especially if they do a convertible, because I think I want my next car to be a convertible. And so I can really justify it if it's convertible. Having two hardtop sports cars is kind of hard for me to justify, especially since I don't even have time to really drive the Bullet much. And so, I've kind of wanted a convertible. So if it's a nice day and I want to take something out and drop the top. So I'm hoping they do. They teased that whole concept of a convertible 86, which was the FRS back then. And they never ended up doing it. So I think they have wanted to do a convertible version. They never did. So I'm hoping maybe this next generation gives them an excuse to, work it in from the very beginning. We'll have to wait and see, though. I know obviously people aren't buying a lot of sports cars these days, so we'll have to wait and see. But I am excited for that next year. That's going to be awesome. James Parker Jr., thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, hope all is well with the Bullet going away for 21. What kind of spec would you go for if you were getting a new Mustang? Mach 1, Standard GT, Performance Pack 1, or 2?" Honestly, so if money is no object, I mean, you didn't list it there, but the GT500 is probably what I would have if I couldn't have the Bullet. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive, and it would be tough for even me to afford because they're not cheap. But I think I would even need a track pack one. I love the regular GT500 without all the carbon fiber stuff. Like, just the normal version is phenomenal. That dual clutch is amazing. It's an awesome sounding engine and stuff. I would probably do GT500 personally. If not a GT500, if it was just a Mach 1 or a regular GT with the performance packages on them, I probably would do the Mach 1. See, the thing is with me, I'm not into the track stuff. So personally, I wouldn't be interested in the track stuff. So I'd probably actually save some money and just go with a regular GT Performance Pack Level 1, since that's the closest thing to the Bullet. The Mach 1 is really sweet. It's just not my cup of tea. I know there's a lot of people excited about it, and I'm glad that Ford did it. But yeah, so that if I couldn't have the Bullet, I'd probably just do a regular GT if I couldn't afford a GT500. The GT350 is also very tempting as well. There's just so many people who have engine issues with those that it's just really, it's a really hard car to recommend to people because of that. And if you are okay with having a vehicle that's not super reliable, you're okay with, having to add oil every 1,000 miles, which seems to be pretty typical for those engines and stuff. If that's okay, then, totally, if you're okay with dealing with that stuff, a GT350 is magical. But unfortunately, just me, I'm too lazy to be, messing with all that kind of stuff all the time. So I wouldn't recommend one personally. Brandon is asking, "Hey Matt, a 10-speed auto or 7-speed manual in Bronco for reliability?" I don't know, because the 7-speed manual is kind of new, and obviously, there's been issues with the MT82s in the past and the Mustang and stuff. But then someone else in the comments earlier before I started here was talking about the 10-speed auto having issues. I haven't heard about that, but if that's the case, I'm not sure which one. I think. I personally would recommend the manual just because it's more fun probably, but if it's anything like the Jeep's manual, it's not the most amazing experience. I personally would just rather have an automatic in a Jeep Wrangler. And so I think from what I've seen, the 10-speed auto is very good. So I would probably do that if it were me, especially as a daily driver or something like that. I would probably just do the 10-speed auto and, leave it at that. Michael Earl, thank you so much for your super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, thanks to your review and other reviews my family will be picking up a 2021 Kia Telluride SX Prestige on August 18th. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I'm so glad that helped you out. That's why I do these reviews, is to help give you guys advice and help you to find a vehicle you're going to love. And a Telluride is a fantastic choice. They're phenomenal vehicles. I still think that is my favorite three-row crossover in that segment. And so, yeah, hopefully you enjoy it and it treats you well. So thank you again for the super chat, and good luck with that. Marcel is asking, if you were to buy a car that will appreciate in value, what would you buy? If you're looking for something to appreciate, I think honestly a GT350 is a pretty solid bet, because yes, they're temperamental, but it is, one of those engines that's going to go down in history for its sound, with the, great manual transmission the GT350 has, just that high red line, all that kind of stuff. I think that's something that's going to go down in history. And anything, you look back on, you're like, that was a high watermark in history. Those are always safe bets. I think like any FCA, Hellcat type thing, obviously they've made tons of Hellcats, but if you look at history as a guide, all that Mopar stuff is worth big money from the 60s. And even though they made tons of them, I mean, they weren't as common as they are for the new ones, but there's a lot of demand for that stuff. And I think they're using that same appeal here for these new ones. And, whenever we're telling our kids and our grandkids about this stuff in 50 years, everyone will at some point bring up the Hellcat, how crazy those were. And that's something that will not be able to continue forever. And so I think Hellcat, stuff like that, all those muscle cars with the horsepower wars going on right now, all that stuff's going to go down in history as being pretty legendary. I also think if you're wanting something reliable, you can actually drive and not have to worry about for a long time. I think the Lexus F lines, all those V8s, the GSF, even the RCF, but especially the GSF, I think was a really underappreciated car whenever it first came out, because there was the higher horsepower stuff with the M5 and stuff. I think the GSF is a fantastic car. They hold their value really well anyway. I think they're just going to go down in history as being a vehicle that gets better with age, and people appreciate more and more as time goes on. So that's another solid pick, I think. Stanley Perez is asking about any news on the new Z. Nothing since the weekly update, that there was the teaser that Nissan put out about the Z. And that's the problem with teasers. They get everyone excited, and then unless it's really coming soon, the hype just dies down because you can't keep it going. And so I think, the earliest we could see maybe a concept Z or something would be the LA Auto Show. If that still happens in November, that would probably be when I'd say, maybe around October or something, you're going to start hearing a little bit more rumblings about the Z. Maybe it'll come sooner, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't expect anything the rest of the summer, unless there's leaks or something that Nissan doesn't plan. Fastline says, do you like to play race car games? I dabble in racing games and stuff a little bit. I was into Forza Horizon here the past winter. I played that a little bit, but and I do a Forza 7 and stuff like that, and I enjoy those. But I don't really play racing games a whole lot anymore. Whenever I do play games, it's usually other games. Like I'll play GTA Online with my one buddy, or, some other games like Mafia. I'm excited for the remaster of the Mafia series. I'm going to be playing through those here once those come out, whenever I have time. But I don't really have a whole lot of time to play video games anyway, so it usually has to wait until, things die down and I have a break where I can actually play. Flo's asking if I ever drove a Lotus Exige. I did drive one once, very briefly, for about 15 minutes when I worked at a car dealership to put gas in it. That's the only time I ever drove an Exige, but they're very, very cool vehicles for that short little drive. And I had a friend that had an Elise, and actually a couple of friends that had Elises, and they are fantastic and very similar to the Exige, of course. Sean says, what is your favorite car of all the cars you've reviewed? That's so hard to pick. That's a common question, but it's so hard to pick just one, because there have been so many good cars that I've reviewed, and there's stuff that's personally, some of the stuff I get really excited about, like the RAV4 Prime. I was strangely really excited about, testing one of those out, because it was just so fascinating to me. So there's some stuff like that, but, obviously like the Jag F-Type was one of my favorites that I've ever done, just because I love the F-Type so much personally. The C8 was really cool, just there was so much hype about that. That was a lot of fun. The GT350 was also really cool. The GT500. Those are all some of the highlights. The first time I went full throttle on a Hellcat was pretty wild, back when those came out in 2015. Yeah, there's been so many good ones. There's been a lot. So I think one that will always go down in my mind as one of the coolest was the Kia Stinger, just because that was the first press launch I ever went on was for the Stinger GT. And that one is always going to stand out in my mind for that reason as well. And I also love the Stinger GT, and that was my first experience in that. So that was probably another one too. JS, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, which is a better buy, 3-year-old LC500 or 1-year-old RCF? I would say the LC500. I love the way those look, and I know looks are subjective, so that'll be up to what you would rather prefer. And obviously you don't have as big of a back seat in the LC500 as you do in the RCF, although neither are really great. But yeah, I would definitely pick the LC500. It's just so much more exotic looking too. I loved the convertible that I had. I can't talk about my driving impressions, but I mean, just from the looks of that thing, it was just gorgeous. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw a couple of pictures I posted of that. And so yeah, that'll be coming out at the end of this month. My review on the LC500 convertible. But yeah, I'd pick in between those two, the 3-year-old LC500 for sure. Melch is asking, hey Matt, what is the worst ticket you've ever gotten? I've only ever gotten one ticket in my life, thankfully, and it was doing 81 and a 65 on my way to college one time, and they knocked it down to 5 over, but the way that the setup was for that county of West Virginia that I got pulled over in, they charge you a flat fee of like $165, and for each mile per hour over you go, it's like an extra $2. So it wasn't really a big difference between 81 and 65. So him knocking it down just helped out because I didn't have the insurance hit of having a higher ticket. But other than that, it didn't really save me much money. But yeah, so that was the only time I ever got a ticket. And thankfully, I'm usually pretty safe and, don't speed very often or anything like that. So we have someone from Panama joining. Thank you so much, Tony, for joining. Like I mentioned at the beginning, that's one of the reasons I want to do this earlier is to try and get, more international people, especially people in Europe who, the time difference really makes it hard for them to join on the later ones. So I'm glad we're having people from all over. That's awesome. Thanks for joining. Blacked Out 50 fan says, hey, Matt, I don't mean to be repetitive, but is it okay if I ask how to convert a car with a push-button start back to a keyed ignition? And if it is okay, can you get a Kia Stinger with a twist key? Thank you. Maybe the base Stinger 2.0. I think they're all push-button start, honestly, for the Stinger. You might be out of luck there. As far as how to convert, it depends on the car. Some cars are pretty easy. For example, the Mercedes, I know with their push-to-starts, it's literally just a little button over the key where you would put the key in. And so for those, it's just a matter of popping off that button and then you would have your slot there for your key. Some others, though, it's more in depth than that, and there's probably almost no way to convert a car to a twist key. So it just kind of depends on what kind of car you're in. But in the Stinger, I don't know. It just depends. I would look into, every car has, a backup key where if the battery dies, you can still use the key to, unlock the car, get into the car, all that kind of stuff. I would figure out whatever car you're interested in, how you can do that. And if, there's any way to start it that way, that would probably be your only option as far as twisting to turn it on. So we have Marco says, would you ever take the bullet to tail the dragon? I would love to do that. And I was actually planning on doing that with some of my other YouTube buddies here this past spring. And then COVID hit and that all got thrown out the window. So yeah, I'm planning to hopefully do tail the dragon here at some point, maybe next year or something. Because I definitely want to do a lot more adventures with the bullet. That's one thing. Usually I do a lot of road trips in the summer and stuff, and I haven't done any because of the current situation, of course. And so the Bullet hasn't really had any more miles put on it because, I don't really daily drive it very often, aside from the rare instances where I don't have a press vehicle. So it's usually all the miles on the Bullet are just road trip miles for the most part, and it hasn't moved at all this year, basically. So, yeah, I'm hoping to do a little trip here. Maybe later on this month. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm hoping to do Tail of the Dragon maybe next year. MR says, what is your opinion on leasing a car while in college? I think that's a good way to make sure you don't have any unexpected repair costs. As long as you can afford that lease, obviously you're getting a vehicle that's within warranty. So anything that goes, it's up to the manufacturer to fix it, so you don't have any surprises there. So I think that's a good thing. And also, if you're not driving a lot, if you're in college, then leasing could be a good option in that case as well. It just depends on, how your mileage situation is. The lease deal. Some leases are worth it, some aren't. Depends on the vehicle as well. German vehicles usually lease very well. Other vehicles, you're better off just buying them. So kind of will depend on the type of vehicle you have. Yeah, leasing is often a very good option depending on your circumstances. So we have Marco's also asking, did you do a car review on the Resurrection Hennessy ZL1 1LE Camaro 1200 horsepower? That would be a lot of fun. If Hennessy or an owner offers one, I would love to review one of those, although I'm still not doing any privately owned reviews as well this year because of, again, the whole pandemic, just being extra safe with that. But hopefully once that passes, I'll get back to doing some privately owned vehicles. I got a whole long list of cars waiting for me to review. It's just a matter of being able to get out there safely and review them. So I'm excited to do that. But in the meantime, I'm just relying on the press cars. The Car Banana says, my dad got a 2016 Golf GTI. He says when I get my driver's license, when I turn 16, he will give the GTI to me. Well, congrats. That's a very cool hand-me-down. He said, by the way, that GTI moves like no other car I've been in. Yeah, they're really punchy with those torquey 2-liter turbo motors. They have some grunt to them. They're great. And that'll be a really fun first car too. So congrats on that. Chewy is asking, what do I think of the first gen Genesis Coupe 2.0T? They're really great. So I did review one. You can go search, I believe it was like a 2012 model or something. I think that was the first gen. And the one that I reviewed was tuned, but they're also just very fun, even stock. I did drive one briefly when I worked at a car dealership again. And they're very cool cars. I've heard they can have some issues with them though, especially the manual transmission ones, I think. But aside from that, I think, it's a pretty solid choice, and it's an awesome car that I wish the Genesis continued to make, but unfortunately they don't feel like competing in that segment anymore. But I think they're pretty solid little cars and pretty fun too. It's anything rear-wheel drive I can usually have a good time in. It's always a good time. But Floyd's asking, is the GR Corolla hatch really a car that's going to come out? It seems like it. The way Toyota's been teasing it, it seems like it's something that's, they're working on. They've been teasing it for a good long while too, because even back whenever we did the original press launch for the Corolla hatch, this is in 2018. A lot of people were saying, this is a lot of fun, but I love you have the manual and all that kind of stuff, but just want more power. And they were just like, we know people want more power. And, now they're officially kind of teasing something faster, and I believe it will be a Corolla. It's just a matter of when. I don't have any inside intel as to when that would be, but I'm hoping it'll be sometime. The way they started teasing it already, I would assume it's going to come before the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think they really are doing it. As far as what's set up and all that kind of stuff, there's been a bunch of rumors, so we'll have to wait and see with that. But I think they're going to do something, and hopefully it'll be pretty cool. Silent Echo is asking, is Honda making an all-wheel drive Type R with 400 horsepower? I don't think I've heard that rumor. Obviously, there's probably a new one in development because there's a spy pictures posted a month or two ago. I don't know if it'll be all-wheel drive. I know the hybridization thing is something that might help them to do that, but I haven't heard about that much horsepower or it being all-wheel drive. But the rumor mills, I'm sure there's someone out there who's speculating that. They're always churning. But Mayhem is asking, hey, Matt, I'm between purchasing a used GT350 or a used manual Hellcat. Which would you choose? Well, I don't know if you might have missed. I was talking a few minutes ago about the GT350 and how they're not super reliable. So if you're okay with adding oil and keeping on top of that engine to make sure that it's not going to be, an issue, then the GT350, I think, would be the one that I would pick if you don't need all-out horsepower. They're very opposites, really, the way they're set up, because the Hellcat has tons of grunt down low and, that supercharger and stuff, way more power. But, those Hellcats only redline at like, I don't know, $6,000 or, 6,200 or something like that. Not very high. And the GT350, of course, has no power down low and then tons of power as it, goes to 8,750 RPM. So, between the two, it really comes down to your preference. Do you like good handling or not? Because that's another polar opposite. So really, they're completely opposite in the way they drive. So if you want a good handling, high revving, sharp car, a sports car, really, GT350. If you want an old school muscle car that doesn't really handle the best, but gives you a huge grin because of the supercharger line and the boatloads of torque you have at like 0 RPM, then I would do the Hellcat. The only other thing I'll say is if you care about safety, Hellcats do not perform well in small overlap crash tests. You can go look it up by the IIHS if you're curious. If you care about safety, I think the Shelby would be the better choice for that as well. But, you know, a lot of people don't care about that. And if you don't, then the Hellcat is a fantastic choice. So yeah, it just comes down to your personal preferences. Garrett Benz, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. Currently cross-shopping a Kia Stinger GT2 and an Acura RDX A-Spec. How would you compare them in terms of how they are to live with and how fun they are to drive? So they're very, probably more similar than I think you might even expect. Obviously, the RDX is a little bit of a higher seating position. So I think with the Stinger, it feels a little more solid because it's a little, I actually think the Stinger is a little more luxurious than the Acura personally, but the Stinger, you're obviously sitting lower. And so when you're in corners, even though they're both heavy vehicles, the Stinger, it really just wants to hunker down and it just grips through those corners. Even though you do have some weight you're pushing through, it just hunkers down. Whereas at the RDX, it's like your mind is just blown by the idea that like you can do the same kind of maneuvers in the RDX and it'll keep up with you and it has no problem with it. It loves corners, the RDX. It's still, I think, the best handling in that segment probably. And, and their all-wheel drive system is so good too that it loves kind of feeling very neutral and like it can actually play around with the back end a little bit in the RDX. And it's just phenomenal. And I think as far as, practicality, the RDX is going to have a little bit more room because the hatch is taller and also the back seat is kind of cut kind of low in the Stinger. So if you are, putting kids in and out of a car seat or something, I don't know, how what your situation is, but for that kind of stuff, I think the RDX is obviously going to be easier as well. So even though I think, if you took the RDX and the Stinger around an autocross course, I think the Stinger would probably be the better performing vehicle, but the RDX is close enough that I think, as far as that stuff goes, the RDX might be a little bit more practical. But then you also have less power. And the Stinger, even though the Acura is a strong performer and, with 280 horsepower, that Stinger with 365, I mean, it hauls and it definitely feels a little quicker. So between the two, I would probably pick the Stinger. Again, if you don't like the extra practicality of the RDX, if you do want the extra space and stuff, the RDX is a fantastic choice. You can't really go wrong with either. I will say though that the user interface in the Stinger, the infotainment is easier. It's just a simple touchscreen versus the RDX, having that new touchpad thing, which is a little convoluted at times. But I've heard that if you learn it and stuff, it's not too bad. It's just not great with smartphone integration and stuff. Because it's not very natural in the way that it feels for that kind of stuff. But anyway, so those are all my thoughts. Thank you again for the super chat, and hopefully that helps you with your decision. But both are fantastic. You can't go wrong with either car, honestly. And so Tech Defender says, hey, Matt, if you were looking for a daily, would you get a Stinger or a Model 3? So between those two, personally, I would rather have the Stinger just because I do a lot of road trips. I don't like to be tied down by electric range. And, whenever I did do a little road trip in the Tesla Model 3 or the Model S, back in the fall, even the P100D with the big battery, you still had to stop a bunch and charge. And it was just inconvenient on road trips. And I do a lot of road trips whenever things aren't crazy like they are right now. And so for that reason alone, I would do the Stinger. If you're only doing stuff around town, the Model 3 is really cool. I really enjoyed the one that I reviewed. But I just like the Stinger. I like the sounds you get in the Stinger and all that kind of stuff. But they are pretty opposite, I think, as far as how they feel, though. Jorge, thank you so much for the super chat. Very generous super chat, too. Thank you so much. He says 987.2 Cayman S or R or a 2019 to 2020 Miata RF. My wife wants the Porsche. I prefer the Miata. Gasp. Well, I guess it kind of depends on how long you plan to keep it because, again, the whole thing with, German vehicles, they can be a little problematic, although Porsche is better than most of the German companies. But between the two, so it's been a long time since I drove one of those Caymans to personally say, but I think I would rather have the Miata. One, because the Miata is just newer, so you have newer tech and stuff. You can plug in your smartphone and all that kind of stuff. If you care about that, that's an advantage for the Miata. If you don't care, then not a big deal. But I just love the Miata's high revving engine. I mean, yes, the Porsches do also rev very high, but the Porsches also still have some taller gearing. Even those older Caymans, they kind of wanted to, push it down a little bit to keep the 911 at the top. And whereas the Miata has none of those issues. The Miata, the gearing is nice and short. So you really rip through the gears a lot more in the Miata. And so personally between the two, just to give myself peace of mind, with Miatas generally are pretty reliable. Not going to have a big expensive bills, by the way. Going to a Porsche dealer for anything is a painful experience from a wallet standpoint. And so, from a financial standpoint, I would probably rather have the Miata as well. Again, if it's something you plan to keep for a long time, if you flip cars every year or something, you can probably roll the dice, get an older German vehicle and be okay. But personally, I would go for the Miata. But they're both, obviously very fun choices, a fun decision to have between those two. So either you or your wife, neither of you are wrong. I think they're both fantastic. But I personally would probably go for the Miata. And thank you again for the super chat. Yad here is asking, hey Matt, what do you think about BMW offering only manual in the M3 and only ZF automatic in the competition, ditching the dual clutch? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen on the BMW forums if anyone's upset about that, but I would assume there would be some people that might be upset about it. I think the ZF automatic is fantastic though. And, I think BMW made the right decision because the people who care about the manual obviously don't need the fastest and the most powerful vehicle because they don't care about 0 to 60 times because the manual just kills your 0 to 60 time. So I think it makes sense to, have the manual with the slower version, and anyone who cares about 0 to 60 times, I mean, the dual clutch might be a little bit faster than the ZF 8-speed, but they're going to be pretty similar in that regard. And I think people who want the most power and stuff, generally, they're going to want the fastest acceleration. The ZF 8-speed is great for that. And so I think it makes sense. The dual clutch would have been nice to keep around. I don't know why they got rid of it. But I will say for those who buy an automatic M3, I mean, the dual clutch is, one of the better ones out there from BMW. But I think in traffic and stuff, you can't beat the torque converter for smoothness and stuff. So I think in daily commutes, those people who do have that automatic and got the automatic probably because they have a lot of stop and go driving, they're going to be happier in the ZF automatic, I think, over a dual clutch with constantly engaging the clutch every time you want to inch up and stuff. And so I think it's a good change personally, but I'm sure there's other people who see it differently. All right, other questions here. I'm so glad to see more of you are joining here. Ben is asking, hey Matt, what type of video editing software do you use? I actually use Adobe Premiere Pro. I use the Creative Cloud version. I believe it's the 2019 version that I use. Yeah, it works well for me and I like it a lot. Steven says, any predictions on the S650 Mustang? Ford is kind of hard to figure out with that because, I think there's a large amount of people who want to keep the manual around, who want to keep the V8 around. And I think the fact that, this new gen F-150 has continued with the V8 is a positive sign that the Mustang will as well. But then, they have the wild cards like the Mach-E, and that was really kind of out of left field as far as everything they did for that. So, I could very easily see them, trying to work the Mach-E powertrain into the next Mustang. We know that, they're not worried about upsetting purists and stuff like that. So at this point, anything's on the table, which is kind of terrifying. But at the same time, I already got my bullet. I'm set for life with that thing. Whatever they do with the Mustang from here on out, I'm not as invested in it as I was in the past. It is what it is. We know that FCA is continuing to, be crazy with their stuff. We'll see what Ford does. I mean, I think if they do an electric Mustang, it would be very awesome as long as they keep that as an option and still have the V8s and stuff for as long as they can. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to do as far as, the safe bet is, evolutionary changes. So EcoBoost will stick around. I'm sure you're going to have, the V8 stick around at least in the beginning. And, it'll probably be the same breathing improvements you've seen. So it might even get the bullet motor like the Mach-1 has. Maybe they'll bump it another 20 horsepower, do 500 horsepower for the new version or something. Styling, I can't remember. I thought I heard a rumor about styling a while back, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think I talked about this in a past live stream. But at the LA Auto Show back in November, I was flying home from the LA Auto Show, and I was sitting next to the guy who actually is the Mustang designer. So I'll keep the story short as to how it all happened and stuff. But I was just sitting next to him, and we got to talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I kind of understand why they had to put the Mustang badge on it, but I'm still not in love with it, And he was like, yeah, he's like, don't worry. He's like, we're already working on the next gen Mustang. It's gonna be awesome. It's safe. Don't worry. And so that was kind of all he could really say, of course. But so, obviously I would have loved to ask him a million questions, but I want to be respectful because he was working and stuff on the plane there. But yeah, so I'm sure they're going to keep it, solid and have something that people enjoy and stuff. It just, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But it seems like we got a little bit longer to wait for that. So we'll have to see what they end up doing and how the world changes in the next couple of years until it comes out. So Doug is asking, Matt, do you think GM will ever install the LT5 motor into the ZL1? I don't know. It's really, I'm not even sure what they're going to do with new Camaros. That's a whole nother vehicle that's really up in the air. In the in GM's teaser video where they were showing their EV platform for the Hummer and all that kind of stuff, there was a bunch of different body styles they were teasing for this electric platform and what could potentially, work with. And one of them was a coupe that looked like a Camaro. So maybe Chevy wants to beat Ford to the punch and be the first to have an electric vehicle with a Camaro. That would also justify keeping the Camaro around as another kind of halo model for, hey, here's all the electric stuff we can do, which of course would upset everyone who loves the V8s and stuff. But no one's buying Camaros anymore. It's, consistently the number 3 performer in the muscle car segment, which is a shame. But it is what it is. So I don't know if the Camaro is safe in the future and what's going to happen. Whether they put that motor in it remains to be seen. I don't know how long they're going to keep the Camaro around for in its current generation and stuff. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. But anyway, Kurt, thank you so much for the super chat. It says your message was retracted, but I see you were asking R34 GTR above that super chat. So as far as the R34 GTR, it's an amazing car. I can't wait for them to become legal here in the States so that we can, start importing them and I can finally drive one someday. Hopefully that would be amazing. They're sweet cars. I think it's one of my favorite JDM cars of all time. And I'm excited to finally see them on the streets here in a couple of years. They're just amazing vehicles. We have Javier is asking thoughts on the future of the Nissan Z since the teaser. I wish there was some more info or speculation, but it doesn't seem to be any. I think it's all the current rumors. I think they're pretty accurate so far, though. It's going to use the Q60 motor, 400 horsepower, manual or automatic. And I think that's about it. I mean, as far as the styling, that's really the only thing that remains to be seen, and the interior and stuff. But, I think it's going to be pretty predictable. Bet on something like a Nissan Sentra interior, which the new ones are really nice. Something like that combined with the Q60 engine, manual transmission or automatic, and the Z teaser, just what we can see on the outside with the round headlamps most likely, and then the 300ZX style bar taillights in the back. Kind of form that in your mind, and that's basically going to be the Z, I'm pretty sure. We'll have to see, though. Could be wrong. They could change stuff, but I think it's just going to be a while before we see anything with that. Marco's asking ZL1 or C7 Z06. I would say... See, again, I care about safety more than the average consumer does, or the average enthusiast, I guess. So I would say ZL1 because the Camaro is safer than the Corvette. So that would be my pick there. And I also like having a back seat and stuff, which you don't get in the Corvette. But the Corvettes are fantastic. They're absolutely amazing. And I think as far as, used sports car bargains, the C7 is one of the best ones out there. It's, they're dropping really quickly because everyone's dumping them for a C8. Which is a shame because C7s are fantastic still. And but I would probably do the ZL1 personally with the 10-speed auto because I love the manual, but it makes it feel way slower than the automatic does. So I would do a ZL1 with the 10-speed auto. The one, Kea, is asking, good afternoon, Mr. Maran. If FCA does release a Ram with Hellcat engine, will Ford and GM reply with a Lightning-equipped with the Predator and a Silverado SS with the LT4? I think the Ram with the Hellcat is going to be totally off-road. The stuff that I was hearing, I had a little informant on the inside who was giving me some info on it. It sounds like it's going to be basically like a trophy truck. It's going to be competing with the Raptor, and that's it. I would love to see the sport trucks come back, and FCA is crazy enough. Maybe they'd be the first to do it and do a Ram that's actually tuned for not being off-road. Throw the Hellcat motor in that, and then maybe that could, provoke Ford and GM to do the same, because trucks are really hot right now. So I could totally see that segment expanding. But I don't think that the Ram T-Rex that is coming, I don't think that is going to cause any kind of Lightnings or Silverado SSs to come out, unfortunately. But hopefully they do get back to that someday. But I think right now truck people want to sit up high. They want to be able to, drive over cliffs and all that kind of stuff. So I think I don't think the truck demographic really is into that sport truck stuff anymore like they used to be, 15 or 20 years ago. Sadly, I think it would be awesome, but I just don't know if there's a market there for that. GTI guy says, I heard Ram is considering the Ram Charger. Yeah, I actually, my FCA informant also mentioned that they believe the Ram Charger is coming back as well from what they've heard. And so that would be awesome if they do. Now they were saying it's going to be basically like, an off-road Ram that then has, a bunch of like removable doors and roof and all that kind of stuff, which sounds a little hard to produce, just given the current constraints and stuff. But we'll have to wait and see, what they end up doing with the Ram Charger. But there's been rumors back and forth that it is happening. It's not happening for a while. I think it will happen because I do believe my source, and I think they're very credible. But excuse me, we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for joining. He says, currently in my garage working on my ND2 Miata. Thanks to your review. Hope you're having a great Sunday. Thanks for joining. And congrats again on getting that Miata. Fantastic purchase. That's another vehicle. If I want a convertible, and if Subaru doesn't do a convertible BRZ or Toyota doesn't do a convertible 86 for the next gen next year, Miata is still a vehicle I'm really closely considering. If I don't end up going with an F-Type used, because that still is kind of what I've been wanting for a while. But the Miata is so much fun, and it's going to be so much more reliable than the Jag I know. So, Miatas are still really tempting. So much fun. Let me see here. Tony's asking, how is being you? It's very busy and very crazy, but very fun as well. I'll just keep it at that, I guess. This channel keeps me so much busier than most people realize, especially with the current upload schedule of, doing 5 videos a week usually now. It's very draining, but it's very, very fun as well. And so it's a good problem to have, because I know a lot of people don't have jobs right now and stuff. So I'm very grateful that I am as busy as I am, but it is definitely exhausting, keeping up with all the press cars and editing is the part that I just don't enjoy much anymore. I wish I didn't have to do that, but unfortunately I cannot afford to hire an editor, so I just put it all on myself. But it's all good because it means I have the freedom to edit it however I like and all that kind of stuff as well. Although Beth has started to help me out with editing the interior reviews, which is very helpful as well. Anyway, Yad says the TFL truck spied a plug-in Wrangler Gladiator. What are your thoughts on that? Well, they did, I believe it was at CES back in January. They already showed a plug-in Wrangler. They're doing that. That's the 4XE thing, I think is what they're going to be branding that as. And so I didn't see the Gladiator one, but I saw the Wrangler. And so as far as that, that's just FCA is going to be doing that with everything. They're going to be doing it for the Renegade, the Compass. They're all going to have, and in Europe they already have plug-in hybrid versions of the Gladiator, or not the Gladiator, the Compass, the Renegade, and I think maybe even the Cherokee, but I'm not sure. And so I think you're going to see that here in the next couple of years. Everything's going to be getting plug-in hybrid versions and mild hybrid versions, all that kind of stuff. So that what you saw with that RAV4 Prime, that is a glimpse into the 2020s. That is going to be something that I think everyone's going to be doing eventually. That's going to be how we're going to have higher performing vehicles here down the road. Mercedes is doing that with having a crazy 4-cylinder and then a ton of electric boost in their AMG models. Everyone's doing that. So that same exact thing that RAV4 Prime did, that is what you're going to be seeing a lot of here in the next 10 years. So get ready for lots and lots of plugs. Kong says, is Beth your sister? No, she is my wife. We've been married for 5 years now. It'll be almost 5 years here in about a week or so. But we've been married and very happy. Vishal is asking, are you getting the new Venza to test? I am hoping to get the Venza. I reached out to my Toyota rep last week about it again, and they're going to try and get it. The thing is, they don't have very many cars to spread across all the journalists that need to do their videos and articles and stuff. So I believe there's only like 1 or 2 on the East Coast right now. So they're giving them to the top people first, and I'm lower on the totem pole because I don't have as many subscribers as some of those other guys and don't get as many views as a lot of those other guys. So I unfortunately have to wait to get it. But I'm hoping to get it here in the next couple of weeks. We'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. But I'm definitely looking forward to testing out the Venza here soon. Jazz says happy anniversary. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And he's also asking, can you post your wedding ceremony online? You have a lot of fans. I appreciate that. We actually didn't film our wedding ceremony. We just had pictures and that was it. We actually got married at Disney World. And so it was a very small, intimate thing. And that was it. So but yeah, it's I really try and stay away from personal stuff on this channel because I know most people don't care. It's just about the cars, and that's totally okay. Every vlog that I've done is usually not done very well, so I just keep it with the reviews and the news and stick to that. The Adventure Auto says, is Matt Moran your real name or a stage name? My last name is longer. I just shortened it because it's easier to remember here for all of you online and stuff. But yeah, my real name is Matt. That's not a stage name. Super Dirks fan, though. That was a stage name. That was, of course, not real. And so we have Ed here is asking, enjoy your reviews very much. Love your gracious attitude. Keep up the great work, Matt. I appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Everyone continuing to watch the videos is what helps me to continue to do my dream job. And I really, really am grateful for that. So thank you for your support. We have Austin's asking why isn't the Civic Si Coupe very popular? It seems like the perfect car for someone who wants a new sporty car with the least amount of money. I think the Coupe isn't as popular anymore just because it's the same price as the sedan. And especially with everyone buying SUVs these days, if people aren't buying an SUV, a lot of people at least want to have 4 doors and that practicality. And so I think at least me personally, I see a lot more Civic Si sedans than I do coupes. And so I think it's, a little bit more rare for that reason. Everyone just loves practicality. Everyone's got pets and stuff these days they want to throw in the back and all that kind of stuff, which is a little bit harder to do with a 2-door and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of, reasons why everyone's just a little more social. And so I think, that's the reason why. But I actually, speaking of the Civic Si Coupe, I did film a review on one. And so I will be posting that this Wednesday, my review on a Civic Si Coupe, a 2020. And so I did the sedan in 2020 already back on the launch event back last fall in Vegas. But I didn't do the coupe. So I was able to get a coupe here for a week and I have that. And so I'm looking forward to that. Automotive Nexus is asking, will you be reviewing a CT5V Blackwing? First, I want to thank you for sharing your they run a Twitter and Facebook page, and they share the links to the reviews. I really appreciate the extra sharing. That always helps. And so thank you so much for doing that. But as far as reviewing the CT5V Blackwing, I'm hoping to. Unfortunately, the GM fleet here on the East Coast is pretty sparse right now. And so the GM vehicles you just saw me review here over the past couple of months, that's like all they have. There's no C8. And I have a solid GM rep, a couple of GM reps actually, who've reached out and they've said, hey, like, what can we do to, help you with doing reviews? Is there any vehicles you'd like? And I listed all the vehicles out. I said all the new Cadillacs, all the, the C8. I'm still waiting on a 2020 Camaro. I want to review that with the new 10-speed auto and do, the new styling and all that kind of stuff. I haven't done a Camaro review in several years, aside from the 2019 that the V6 that the fan just graciously offered me last year. So I told him I want all that stuff. And even getting a regular CT4 and CT5, they haven't had any luck with sending those yet. So I'm hoping to get those. The Blackwing will probably be later on down the road, I'm guessing, although maybe they'll send those first. I'm not sure. But I continue to ask them for those, and they just don't have them. I even was talking to my buddy Sophion of Redline Reviews. He's been asking for them too, and it's the same. We're in the same predicament since we get the same press fleet. They just don't have them, which is kind of a bummer. I think it's just, COVID kind of complicated all that. A lot of companies pulled all of their press vehicles for a little while until they knew what was going on and stuff. Like Ford, I was supposed to be reviewing a bunch of Fords earlier this summer, and then they pulled all their stuff, and now it's back on the schedule here for August. So I'll be getting in an F-250 and a Ford Escape Hybrid. Unfortunately, though, I keep asking them, like, where's the new EcoBoost high performance pack? I want to review that. I want to spend a week with the GT350 while they're still around. I want to spend a week with the GT500 since I just did the 1 day review drive of the GT500. I keep asking all of them for all that stuff. They don't have it in the East Coast fleet, at least the DC fleet that I get my stuff out of. They're a little lower in the totem pole than all the LA guys and the Detroit guys and the people in New York or Miami. Those fleets are all a lot bigger. So I just have to wait, unfortunately. But hopefully, something happens here at some point. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reviewing all that stuff someday. Jared, thank you so much for the generous super chat. He says, I am currently cross-shopping pre-owned AMG GTSs and LC 500s. My girlfriend and I are leaning towards the LC for the reliability and sound, but I'm worried I will miss the performance. Would like to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Thank you so much again for the super chat. So I guess it depends on if you've test driven both of those and how you feel about them. Actually, it's kind of interesting because if you watched my reviews on both of those vehicles, I was able to drive those like back to back. And I don't remember which one I drove first. I think that day I was in the LC 500 last. The AMG GT, I think in that video, I did compare it to the LC 500 a little bit, I think. So basically, reliability, yes, the LC 500 is going to be the better choice, clearly, hands down. And I honestly think as far as engine sounds go, the LC 500 does sound better, but the AMG GT does have a better exhaust with a lot more crackles and pops. Now, the thing with the AMG GTS is that it's going to be the better handler. It's going to have the better transmission as well. It's sharper. You also have less space on the interior, though. I felt a lot more cramped in the GTS over the LC 500, so if you're going to drive it often and go on trips and you want to, put stuff places, I think the AMG GT there's not a lot of space in that car. So it's fun for, taking it out on a sunny little drive and that's it. But I wouldn't, want to live with the GTS, I don't think. Whereas an LC 500, I could see myself living with a little bit easier, even though that's kind of weird with it only having one real cup holder and stuff. So they both are a little quirky. The AMG GTS, it really depends on, if you're going to get a warranty with it, then I would say go for that. I would not want to have a used Mercedes out of warranty, though. Personally, it's a little iffy. And even my wife's Mercedes C300 just yesterday had some weird little electrical quirk where it said that the engine oil was overfilled and we needed to reduce the engine oil. And I haven't touched the oil ever in our ownership experience of that vehicle. It just had its oil change and yearly service at the Mercedes dealer like 2 months ago or maybe 3 months ago. I'm assuming they did everything right. We've been driving it the past 2 or 3 months without any issues. It's a 1-year-old car with 6,000 miles. So I don't think there's any engine issues that would cause coolant to go into the oil. So I don't know why it gave us that message. I'm waiting until Monday to take it into the dealer. It drove totally fine. It's just like Mercedes have these really scary warning messages. And even last year, she had the dashboard light up like a Christmas tree and go into limp mode. And there was no reason. They just reflashed it and everything was fine. Stuff like that makes me sketched out by Mercedes vehicles. So if you're okay with, occasionally having a little scare here and there or having an unexpected cost pop up if it's not in warranty, then go for the AMG GT. But personally, I would pick the LC 500. There's also other options if you're looking for something that's a little bit crazier and faster. Like I said, you could go for like a GT 500 or something like that if you're looking for the power for, similar pricing. But I would do the LC 500 personally between the two. Hopefully that helps in your decision. Both are fantastically fun cars, though, so good luck deciding. Travis, thank you so much for your super chat. He says, hi, Matt. I do not need a new car right now, but I am tempted to buy the Land Cruiser or Lexus LX 570 before they eliminate the V8. Thoughts? I think the V8 is going to be around for a while. It seems like they're going to be waiting at least a couple more years to get rid of that. So I wouldn't, be in too big of a hurry, at least with the LX. The Land Cruiser, maybe they will get rid of it sooner. We'll have to see. They're both solid cars, though. And the great thing about both of those is they don't really depreciate much. So you can buy one new and you're not going to, get killed on depreciation in the first year or two. They hold their value really well. So that's, I mean, if you could afford it, I think it's great to, buy a new car as soon as you can, but obviously they've been around for many years, and you can buy plenty of them used as well if you'd like. So they're always going to be around to buy down the road. So even if they do eliminate the V8, you got 20 years of relatively unchanged vehicles that all have the V8 to pick from on the used market as well, and they run forever. So even if you buy one with 100,000 miles on it, you'll probably be fine for the rest of time. So they're really solid vehicles. So I wouldn't worry about missing your opportunity too much there. 19 Josh says, what watch are you wearing? I just have an Apple Watch here. It's the Series 4. I used to have a Citizen watch back whenever I actually had a real watch. But the Apple Watch is really nice as far as just getting notifications and stuff, since I do get a lot of that. And especially when I'm filming cars and stuff, it's really great to be able to just look up at my wrist, see the text or whatever, and not have to pull my phone out. So I really like it for that. But I do kind of miss a good old school watch. And if I ever have the money someday, I'd love to have like an Omega or something like that, because I do enjoy watches a little bit. All right. Other questions here. Matthew Phelps says, anyone watch Scotty Kilmer videos? Other people are commenting. I definitely do not watch Scotty Kilmer videos, and I'll just leave it at that. Fastline says, do you like to get a new iPhone every year? I don't. I usually upgrade every 2 years or so whenever I'm eligible. And so, yeah, I have the iPhone 11 Pro right now because it has the dark green. Like, come on, it's like Apple made this phone for me. It's like dark green. It matches the bullet pretty closely. Like, how could I not get the dark green iPhone? So I might keep this one for a while since I really love the color. So I probably won't be upgrading this year, but maybe next year or year after. A Scott says, do you think Infiniti will close its doors in 5 years? I don't think so. They seem really committed to Infiniti, and I think they just did a recent interview with their CEO or whatever, who was like, we're going to go Nissan Plus, which sounds kind of scary, but they said it's going to be very premium, and instead of having sports car driving dynamics, they're going to have super luxurious interiors and stuff, and that's how they're going to justify the Infiniti, upcharge and stuff. And they seem to be really committed. So unless Nissan really gets so bad that they're in like desperate survival mode, which it sounds like they kind of are, but they seem to be still sticking with Infiniti. And I think it's going to stick around as long as Nissan sticks around. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think they'll be around in 5 years. So Blue Solstice says, Matt, bully FCA for Alfa Romeo. I know I keep asking, but please, I need more Giulia videos. Yeah, that's speaking of press cars. I actually just talked to my FCA rep like 2 weeks ago asking for Giulia, and they didn't have any in my fleet. I know there's other fleets elsewhere in the country and other people doing reviews elsewhere in the country. Don't have one right now, but I desperately want to do, the new Giulia and Stelvio with the infotainment systems. And I also still have yet to drive a Giulia Quadrifoglio. I did the Stelvio Quadrifoglio a couple years back. I still have never driven a Giulia Quadrifoglio, so I desperately want to do that. And so I hope that they send those eventually. Again, everything's just a little weird with COVID and all that kind of stuff with the whole predicament going on. The Car Banana says, Matt, what do you think of an STI for a hand-me-down? They say we almost got one instead of the GTI. The STI, that motor is not very reliable, especially if you modify it. GTIs can have issues too, since it's they're German, and so they can have some weird, quirky electrical things. But the STI, they just blown motors left and right in those STIs. It seems I don't know if I would hold on to an STI for a long time. They're fun cars. They're amazing to drive, but I don't think I'd keep an STI for a long time unless you like tinkering with stuff. Jorge, thank you so much. He says, why doesn't Acura make a Halo ILX that basically is a more elegant Type R? I agree, and thank you again for the super chat. I actually just saw an ILX the other day for the first time, one of the A-Spec versions. I don't know why that vehicle doesn't get more love. And I was even begging Acura, speaking of other companies, I'm begging for press vehicles. I was begging Acura for years for the new ILX, whenever it had, the upgraded engine and all that kind of stuff. I think the ILX is one of the most underappreciated cars, unless it's terrible to drive and like I'm missing something, but it has the old Civic Si engine, which is the far better engine as far as Civic Si's go over the new one. So you have the old engine, you have the dual clutch, which I'm assuming is decent. It can't be that bad. I don't know. So those two things already make it great. And then you have the Acura looks, which I think for the refresh look pretty good. The interior isn't the most amazing, but again, when you look at how much those things cost, they're like, what, 29 grand for an ILX, and that's sticker price. I'm sure you can talk them down to basically be the same price as a Civic Si sedan. Like anyone who like wants a Civic Si but wants an automatic, how are they not tripping over themselves to go buy an ILX? I don't understand. I mean, like I said, I have not driven one, so maybe they are awful and I'm missing something, but I think the ILX is so unloved, and it's such a bummer because they're probably not going to do a new one. I mean, they're just keeping this old one around for a while, and we'll see what happens, but I hope that they do something to keep that engine around, because that engine in that old Civic Si is fantastic. And by the way, if anyone owns an ILX and they are in the, I don't know, within 3 to 5 hours of drive of Pittsburgh, please send me an email. All the contact info is in the description below. If you want to, offer that up. And then once COVID passes, I would love to review someone's ILX, since Acura doesn't seem to have any interest in promoting the ILX. Like they haven't had one on the press lead for years. It's like they don't even care about advertising it or putting it out there, which is kind of a bummer. Because I love the ILX. I think it's a really cool idea. Tom's WRX channel says, when will you be posting your new SI coupe video? I have a 2020 on allocation, anxiously awaiting. Keep up the great work. Thank you for watching the channel. I will be posting it on Wednesday. The interior review will be going live on Tuesday, so you don't have much longer to wait. It'll only be a couple more days here for that Civic Si coupe video. It was a really fun thing to live with for a week. Other questions here. ProSim says the best engine is the FA20. The FA20 is good as well. I just wish they had more torque. That's my only thing with that engine. Jazzbo says you don't have a Pittsburgh accent. Yeah, I definitely have, and it was funny. I was watching some old home movies a couple of days ago, and back when I was a teenager, I really did have a thick Pittsburgh accent. And I think when I went to Virginia Tech for college, that kind of got I guess worked out of me somehow, and I don't have it anymore. But every once in a while I'll say yins and nat and all those Pittsburgh things, but it's pretty rare. All right, other questions here. Let me see. We have John says, happy anniversary. I appreciate it. He says, I have a 2016 Mustang EcoBoost with a performance package. Thoughts on adding Shelby GT350 air intake, strut tower brace, 2.3 liter performance calibration kit. Is track handling package already on the car? Thanks. 2016, you won't have the track handling package, I don't think. I'm not sure exactly, but I know the performance package is just, its own thing. The air intake, I don't think a Shelby GT350 air intake would fit on the EcoBoost, just because it's, not the same engine. I know they adapted the GT350 intake onto the Bullet, but at least that's a V8. I'm not sure if the 4-cylinder that would work. But there are aftermarket intakes you can add, of course, and strut tower brace would of course fit on because it's, same body and all that kind of stuff. The performance calibration kit, I'm not sure about. I think I've seen some stuff in the past on that. That is a nice way to keep your warranty if you do still have a warranty on your car. But I think there are other options out there as well, as far as tunes and things like that. So that kind of comes down to what you're looking for out of the tune and all that. But I think personally, I'd probably be, a little more safe knowing that you're getting it from Ford and not from an aftermarket company. But yeah, lots of good performance and mod potential out of the EcoBoost. They're still a really good value. All right, we have Tony is saying electric bicycle in your future. Yeah, no electric bikes. They're very cool though. I actually was on a little bicycling tour last year on vacation, and we were just on normal bikes, but our tour guide had an electric bike, and it was very handy for some of those hills. It would be great to have that if I actually rode a bike, but I very rarely ever ride a bike, so no plans on that. Virginia Tech is a good college, Jazzbo says. You must be smart. I don't know about that. I just got a degree in financial planning. But it was a great college. It was a great experience. And I made one of my best friends for life at Virginia Tech. So I'm grateful to the school for that, especially. Pro Sim says, I feel like if Ford and Subaru and Toyota combined their efforts and made a in-between Mustang GT and an 86, it would be a perfect weekender. Yeah, I think that's kind of what like the Nissan Z and stuff kind of is going to be. You have that extra power. And I think even the EcoBoost and four-cylinder, Camaros and Mustangs and stuff are kind of that in-between thing where you have more power than the 86, but you have less than the GT. But yeah, I think the Nissan Z is going to be able to, kind of fill that niche, hopefully, and be a good choice. All right, so other questions here. We have Praval is asking, what are your expectations for the next gen BRZ 86? And I think it's really hard to predict because right now they're just saying that it's going to be, there's two different trains of thought. There's the one that's saying it's going to have the FA24 motor from the Subaru Ascent and all the other XT models and have, the turbo finally. And there's that theory, but then there's also a theory that's going to have maybe 15 more horsepower and use a naturally aspirated version of that 2.4 liter engine. So it has a little bit more torque, but doesn't have, as much horsepower as some people might be hoping for. I don't know which way it's going to go. I'm open to either. I think they would really have to re-engineer the FA24 motor to be more fun, though, because it's a very torquey motor, but it's not a sports car engine. So they would really have to completely overhaul that engine to make it more fun in a vehicle like a BRZ. And I think if they, really just worked on doing, a unique naturally aspirated thing, had a bunch of torque in it, had, a nice high red line and stuff still, I think that would very much keep in line with what the current BRZ and 86 are, with their purity of handling that the engineers love talking about, with not having a turbo and having, the naturally aspirated response and stuff. So I'm thinking they might stick to the naturally aspirated thing myself. We'll have to wait and see, but it could go either way, really. All right, we have Mark Noble joining us. He's from Germany. He always comments on the weekly updates. I really appreciate you joining. So he's commenting on the whole thing about the Mustang and stuff like that. We also have Jason Martin who joining us. Thank you so much for joining. He's the one who often contributes subtitles to the videos, and I'm very grateful for that. He says, hi, Matt. Does your buddy with the orange S550 Mustang still have it? Happy anniversary. Thank you. And that's really going back. I'm impressed you remember that. Yeah, he does still have it. He actually just bought a Honda Ridgeline, though, because they now have a daughter. And so he wanted something a little more practical. So they have a Honda Ridgeline he just bought recently, and he loves that. And so that is his main daily driver. He still has the Mustang that he drives whenever he doesn't need to drive the baby around. But so that's his situation. He is keeping the Mustang for a little bit. He's considering keeping it, but he might end up selling it as well, just because it doesn't fit into his life quite as well as it used to. And so we'll have to see, if he ends up hanging on to it or not. But as of right now, yes, he does still have it. And I believe, I can't remember how many miles he said he's up to. I think he's somewhere in the 50 to 60,000 mile range at this point on it. He still really loves it a lot. He goes back and forth between getting rid of it and getting something else, or doing mods to it and falling in love with it a little bit more that way. So we'll have to see what ends up happening. Mark is asking, I didn't know if it came up as a question already, but do you plan to buy a new car during the next year? If so, what is on your wish list? That's just going to come down to the money situation and our house situation, because right now I only have the one garage, and so we definitely want to get more garage space before we buy any more cars. And so that all has been put on hold until COVID passes, because the ad rates have really dropped off for all YouTubers because of the pandemic, and now there's a lot of advertisers that are pulling out of all social media because of all the stuff going on with Facebook. And so a lot of companies are just doing a blanket boycott of social media advertising, which then hurts the ad rates some more. So financially, the channel isn't doing very well right now. So I cannot afford anything beyond what I have currently, unfortunately. So, hopefully that rebounds and recovers here. There's lots of dips with YouTube where something happens in the world or with advertising and stuff, and things drop off and then they come back. So I'm hoping once it rebounds, the first thing is just getting a new house, getting more garage space, and then hopefully the car I eventually want to get is a used Jaguar F-Type convertible as the addition to the garage. But, I'm also considering Miata potentially, or the BRZ or 86 if they do a convertible version of that. For the next gen version, that's also a potential buy. but that's about it. As of right now, I still love the Bullet. I hardly have any time to even drive that. So the more cars that I buy, the less time that the Bullet even gets to be driven. And I already feel bad about how much that sits. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, first order of business is just getting a new house once things improve. So yeah, but good question there. He says happy anniversary as well. Yeah, thanks. It's not for another week, but I really appreciate everyone for joining in with that. It's very, very kind of you all. So we have Christians asking, Matt, what do you think of the new RAV4 Prime? I love it. I actually just did a review of it. I posted a couple of days ago. You can go watch that. Check it out on the channel. It was a lot of fun. I really love the RAV4 Prime a lot. And if I needed an SUV, family vehicle, the RAV4 Prime would probably be my pick. It'd either be that or an RDX A-Spec, but I'd probably do the RAV4 just because I'm so fascinated with the whole electric thing. Vayetzi, thank you so much for joining the live stream and for the super chat here. He says, happy anniversary. Keep up the great work. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, thanks for all your support over the years. I really appreciate it. Morgan Lives is asking about the C8. Fantastic vehicle. You can go watch my review on the C8 for all my thoughts on it. It was a really fun vehicle to review. PC is asking if I'm going to cover the Bronco reveal tomorrow. I'm going to cover it in the weekly update. I don't think I'm going to do a separate video on it tomorrow just because of the way they timed it. It's going to be at like 8 o'clock Eastern time, I think, tomorrow, which by the time they actually reveal everything and then I film and then edit, it's not going to be up till midnight. And there's going to be a million people doing a Bronco, discussion video. So I'll probably just wait until the weekly update for all my thoughts. I'll probably post a thing on Instagram. So if you want to hear my thoughts, right off the bat, Instagram at Matt Maran Motoring is where I, do post more stuff on there. And, also on Twitter, I often tweet and retweet all the news stories, and I really stay on top of it there for anyone who really wants to be on the cutting edge of the automotive news stuff. But as far as on this channel, I'll probably wait until the weekly update to cover that. ProSim says I should move to Northern Virginia. I disagree. Every time I drive through Northern Virginia, the traffic makes me want to pull my hair out. Not a big fan of Northern Virginia just for the traffic and stuff. It's a very lovely place. Otherwise, I have friends that live in the area and stuff, but I don't think I would want to live there personally. It's also so expensive. Like housing and stuff is crazy. But there's a lot of places I'm tempted to move to, but Northern Virginia, unfortunately, is not one of them. All right, other questions here. We have Law Mobile Gaming says, Matt, do you have an iPhone mic you would recommend for recording interviews? So what I actually use whenever I do, if you see, the outside part of the reviews, I do have a lavalier mic, and that is a Rode Video Micro, or it's a Rode. If you look up like Rode iPhone mic or something, I don't know if they still make them, but they have one, and that's what I use. And it's been pretty good. It's not like amazing or anything, but I use that. And then what I do is, because it's actually one of the old ones, so it has an old auxiliary like headphone jack thing. So I have to plug that into the iPhone adapter since those don't have headphone jacks anymore, and then plug that into my phone. And that's how I do the outside parts of the videos. And it's worked very well. It's very reliable. And that Rode one also doesn't have any batteries to worry about or anything. So that's really great because you don't have to worry about the battery dying on you. And so that's also nice. All right. Sean Paul is asking, have you seen Saab Kyle's new house video? Crazy. If you haven't, it's mind-blowing. Living in the city, I can only dream. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but I do want to check that out. It's awesome that he was able to build his own house. That's like a dream come true. I'd love to be able to build a house someday and have, a huge warehouse and all that kind of stuff would be pretty awesome. Morgan Live says Texas all the way for moving. I don't plan on moving, by the way. Whenever I do get a new house, I'm just going to stay in the Pittsburgh area here. But Texas is probably one of the top places I would consider moving to if I were to move out of state, just because no state income tax. I'd save a boatload of money there. And also, it's just like the amount of house you can get in Texas. Every once in a while, I'll be watching HGTV with the wife or something. And like some of these houses, I mean, you can get like really nice houses for like $400,000. And it's like you can live like a king in certain parts of Texas with the amount of housing you can get for your money. It's a really impressive value proposition. So I'd probably, Texas would be one of the places I'd consider moving to if I wanted to leave Pittsburgh. But all my friends and family are in Pittsburgh, so I don't see myself ever leaving here for a long time, if ever. All right. Mark is saying, okay, we're discussing aftermarket parts and stuff. Jason does say Texas does have extreme weather, though, which is true. But as far as filming reviews, that would actually kind of work in my favor because although, yes, it'd be, it'd be tough whenever it's really hot, you do get all 12 months out of the year to film versus here, whenever it's like -2 outside, I do not want to go out and film car reviews. And I really try and do less, press cars and things like that during the winter because I hate going outside and filming whenever it's freezing out. So that is one thing. It also means, I wouldn't, I don't have as many content opportunities here in Pittsburgh because, back again, pre-COVID, you were able to go to car shows only from, April until October, and then everyone went into hiding until next April. And so in Texas, I assume people, are usually out all year round and doing stuff, which is be a lot more exciting to be able to go to car shows in the middle of winter and stuff. That'd be awesome. So that is another appeal of Texas to me. But yeah, it would be really hot. Wouldn't love that, but wouldn't be the end of the world. Law Mobile Gaming, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thanks, brother. Do you use a specific audio recording app with the mic? I do. Let me see what the name of it is exactly here. It's called Voice Record Pro is the one that I use. And so it's nice because you can actually change the levels and stuff and get a little more in depth than like the standard like voice memo app that Apple has. But I've heard a lot of people use just the standard voice memo app and that works fine for them too. But I use Voice Record Pro and then I use the Rode mobile mic. And those two have been a good, reliable combo for me for a good while. And I really like it. But thank you again for the super chat. Fastline says, do you still go to car shows? I have not been to a single car show this year, unfortunately. All the Cars and Coffees here in Pittsburgh got canceled for the entire year. They just figured it was safer to do that for COVID. And so there's, I'm sure there's probably other car shows. I don't know of them if there are in the area that still are going on, but I haven't been to any, and I don't plan on going to any, honestly, this year, unfortunately, just the way things are right now. So yeah, hopefully, next year everything is back to normal and we can all just, go back to having our fun car stuff. But in the meantime, not doing any car shows, unfortunately. All right, we have, another super chat. Thank you so much, Jag42TMG, for the very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. TMG Laser Jammers for all your automotive laser defense needs. There you go. So if any of you guys are looking for laser jammers, check them out. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. Isaac, thank you so much for the super sticker here, and I will keep it up. I definitely appreciate all you guys, all the comments and all the support you've all given me is such a motivator for me because, like I said, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of stress sometimes too, working really hard on a video and then not getting any views and stuff like that. It can be tough to stay motivated, but, I always just keep in mind there's so many of you who really enjoy the channel, and that's really what keeps me going. Even whenever the numbers don't look great and stuff, it's also really just encouraging to have all you guys support the channel. So thank you so much. Tony's asking eShop when, Matt Moran products. So if you're asking about products, I don't really have a store per se, but I do have a Teespring site if you're interested in shirts and all that kind of stuff, merch and all that. I believe it should be displaying there a little bar even in this live stream, but you can also see that on any of my other videos. It should give you a little shelf there with merch and stuff you can check out. Other than that, I also do have a little Amazon store if anyone's curious about my camera gear and stuff. That's always in the description. If you want to check out, all the products that I use and stuff like that, you can go on there. But that's about it as far as shops and stuff. Marco's asking, if no budget, favorite American sports car? Well, me, it'd have to be the Bullet, but I'm biased. But beyond that, favorite American sports car, no budget, I don't even know. I think, I just really love the Hellcats. They're so much fun. I love the Supercharger one. They're great. The C8 Corvette's amazing, though. I really do love those. I want to spend some more time in one, hopefully later this summer. There's a lot of really good good choices. And that's the thing. We're living in such good times right now with so many amazing choices. It's, we're very lucky to have all these great choices to pick from. All right. So Christopher Tile says, looking to lease a new car, new Civic Si or 1.5T Accord with a tune. I live in New York and would commute to work. Well, the main difference between those two, I think, aside from obviously the bigger space and all that kind of stuff, is the Accord doesn't have the limited slip differential in the front there. So putting power to the ground, the Civic Si does a lot better. So that would probably, if you're going to really do some sporty driving, you might enjoy the Si better. But I think for a daily driver vehicle, I'd rather have the Accord because they still put down power very well with the 1.5T. I don't know if with a tune, if that would get any more challenging. It probably would, but yeah, I think I actually like the way the Accord handles a little bit better as well. And if it's for a commute and stuff, I think an Accord would be a little bit better of a commuter vehicle because you have the better infotainment system in the Accord than what you get in the Civic with their old, laggy system, sadly. And the Accord just, has more room. The gauges and stuff I think are a little bit cooler. And I like the extra space of the Accord too. I think it's kind of nice. It's such a good family sedan and stuff. So I personally probably pick the Accord, but the Civic Si is also a fantastic choice. And I'll just be in this week's review on the Civic Si Coupe. I'll be talking more about the Civic Si and how much I really enjoy spending a week with one. They're a lot of fun too. So Revving India says, how do you get cars to review from PR agencies? Please guide me how to do it. So that comes down to, it is kind of PR agencies, but it's kind of a complicated process where you have to get approved by the manufacturer first. So it would be reaching out to the PR reps for those car companies, reaching out to them, and like for me, I didn't get my first press car until I had I think 100,000 subscribers. They're a little more lenient these days, but they still want to make sure that it's worth their while because it does cost them a decent amount of money to send a press vehicle. And so reaching out to the PR person, once the PR person has approved you for, vehicles across their company, then it's a matter of they work with a fleet company that manages several different car brands. And they are the ones who schedule the cars, and you have to, request all the different cars through them and stuff. So that's kind of how that all works. And then it comes down to, again, just having enough of an audience to get them and stuff, because it's not something that everyone can do. It's just a matter of, building up the audience. And so that's why, when I got started, I first just had privately owned vehicles that I reviewed, friends and family members' cars. I had a few friends that own car dealerships. They let me review anything on their lots, and all that kind of stuff kind of helped to, get the channel off the ground until I was able to, get a large enough following to get the manufacturer stuff. Morgan says, what about used car reviews? Yeah, that's kind of the easiest way to go about that is you can, pitch it to a car dealership if you don't have connections. And just, tell a car dealership, hey, I get 10,000 views of video. It's free advertising for you. I'll give you a shout out to the dealership and, just see if they go for it. A lot of them might not, they just think you're a joyrider or something, or they don't care about the free exposure. But there are some that, they want to get in on the social media stuff and, it's free advertising for them. So a lot of them are up for it. So yeah, that's kind of a good way to do that as well, to get your feet wet in reviewing cars until you can get into the new stuff. All right, we have Jesus is asking, why has Subaru kept the same boxer engine for years now? Well, they did have the new one with the new WRX here in 2015, so that's at least new. As far as the STI motor, I think a lot of people really liked that motor and the way it sounded and stuff, so they kept it around. But I think also Subaru it doesn't seem like they're super invested in the enthusiast stuff anymore. They have seen their record sales year after year, and they get real excited about, I'm sure they're growing really, really well as a company. And, it's just I don't think performance is their focus anymore. They pulled out of rallying and all that kind of stuff, I believe. And so I just think, it's a lot of money to develop a brand new engine. And so I think they wanted to just put it off for as long as possible. Hopefully now they have enough people that have been annoyed about this that they're like, all right, fine. We'll do a new engine. So hopefully the new STI does have a new engine. But I think they just stuck with it because it was easy. And, you have all the accountants running these car companies these days, and they say, well, it's going to cost us $20 million to develop a new engine. We're not going to spend that for a car that people buy 5,000 of a year. And there's like, $5,000 profit margin on each of them or whatever, like there's the money doesn't add up. And so that's what it is with a lot of this stuff. There's lots of enthusiasts in car companies that say, sure, we'd love to do this. There's been Mazda engineers that have said, yes, we'd love to do a new RX-7 with a crazy rotary engine, but 5 people would buy them new, and no one would want to pay the 50 grand or 70 grand they cost, and it's going to cost us $50 million to engineer it. So we're never going to make money off of that. And so some companies take that hit just to have a halo car because they think it boosts the brand image, and people walk in, wow, look at the new RX-7, and then they go buy a Mazda 3 or something. But that's getting harder and harder to justify these days, especially with how everyone's obsessed with SUVs and stuff now. It's a very tough thing to justify from a financial standpoint. And I think that's what Subaru is just like, well, why don't we just keep churning out Foresters? Why are we even bothering with the STI? And I think it's honestly, I'm happy they're even continuing to keep the STI around because, they don't have to. And I'm just glad they're doing that. But yeah, unfortunately, it means that, you don't have a lot of companies spending money. Same thing with the Supra. And them doing that partnership with BMW, and BMW not wanting to do a new Z4 because no one buys them, but they'll do the partnership with Toyota. And that's why the only reason why there's a new Z4 is because of the Supra. And so that's kind of how that kind of stuff happens. Then everyone complains about it and doesn't like the new Supra, doesn't like the new Z4 because they're partnerships, and then no one buys them anyway. And they're like, well, why do we do this anyway? And so it just kind of just is a slippery slope that eventually will lead us to all having electric everything appliances if people don't continue to buy new cars. And this is the struggle with manual transmissions going away. No one wants to buy them new. Everyone wants to wait for someone else to take the depreciation hit. But then that means there's less of them selling new. And so therefore the companies can't justify them and they go away. So that's the thing. That's why it's very important to buy new vehicles of whatever it is you want to support. If you like the Miata, buy a brand new Miata. Buying a used Miata does not tell Mazda anything. Buying a used Miata helps out the guy that doesn't want his Miata anymore. Buying a new Miata tells them, hey, we want to keep the Miata around because these people are buying them. And I know that it sucks to get the depreciation hit, but buying new cars is the way to keep that type of car around that you like. It's, that's just the way it is. So hopefully we can keep as many of these fun cars around as possible, as long as we can, and see what happens. But ProSim says, Matt, do you believe the WRX is better than the WRX STI though, right? I think from a reliability standpoint, yes. If I were to buy one, I would rather have a WRX for the much better fuel economy and the much better reliability over the STI for sure. Let me see. We have Mark continuing on the discussion here on the suspension stuff, which is awesome. I love that you guys are talking in the chats as well. It's all just hang out and talk cars. That's what this is all about, and I'm glad we have a great community here. Turbo LS4 says, do you think Lexus will ever put a manual transmission in a car? Definitely not. I don't think it's ever going to happen, especially as a luxury brand and the fact that no one buys manuals anymore. I think there is zero chance of them ever doing a manual Lexus, sadly. All right. Revving India says, car showrooms don't let me drive. I make videos in the showroom. So how and where to contact PR agencies in India? So that you'd want to go to the press site for your country. So you go to like Ford India, their media site, and there should be PR contacts listed there, and you would want to reach out to them and see if you can get them through them, and that kind of be the way to do that. But it might work out differently than it does here in the States. I'm not totally sure, but that's generally the way it works here. All right, let me see. We have Marco saying that the Camaro ZL1 1LE is his favorite, I guess, as far as the whole muscle car discussion goes. They're also fantastic cars as well. So many good things these days. We're all spoiled for choice. Nate O'Neill says, I have a 2015 WRX fully built stage 3 block. Modding potential is great on FA20, currently on E85, 500 horsepower. Wow, that's impressive. That's very, very awesome. I'm glad that they are holding up better for that new motor, because I know the EJs do not. So that is great that they're doing well. Brett says he's buying a 2013 Genesis Coupe 3.8 tomorrow. Thoughts? Watched your review from a while back. Yeah, that review was really all I have to say about that version of the Genesis Coupe. Since then, I haven't really kept up with the reliability of them or anything like that, but they're really fun vehicles. I think it's a great alternative to the Nissan, 300 or 370Z and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're just a different choice. You don't really see Genesis Coupes around a whole lot anymore. At least me in my area, I very rarely see one. So it stands out from the pack, and I think it's a very cool choice. And so congrats on buying that. All right, we have Justin says, have you ever been to Europe, or are you planning to go there? Greetings from Germany, longtime fan here. Thank you for watching from Germany there. And thanks for watching the channel and joining us here. As far as my trip, so I did go to Europe twice, actually 3 times technically so far. I went to the Geneva Motor Show in 2011, and that we flew into, I think at one point we connected in Munich, but that's the only time I've ever been in Germany. Otherwise we just drove through, because basically it was a trip where we went to the Geneva Motor Show. We were in Switzerland, then we drove through like a little bit of France into Italy, and went to the Lamborghini factory and stuff like that. That was the first time I went to Europe. Then 2018, I went to the UK with Beth. We went to visit some of her friends and check out London and stuff like that, which was awesome. And then last year, we did actually go to Paris, and we did that. That was a trip that I didn't really share because I don't really share much personal stuff, but did that, and that was a lot of fun. We did that we did a little trip to Paris, combined that with a cruise in the south of France and stuff. And so we went to Corsica and did a couple other little stops and stuff like that. And did a little bike trip through the south of France, which was awesome. Going through Marseille and all that kind of stuff, going to Van Gogh's, one of the houses he lived in, and all that kind of stuff. Europe is really, really cool, and love to go back once things blow over again, if we can afford to. It's definitely expensive, so something we can't do very often, but I'd love to, drive the Autobahn someday finally. I have been on the Autostrada in Italy and in France and stuff, but haven't done the actual Autobahn, so I'll do that someday. And I really like the UK so much. I'd love to go back there like every couple of years if I could, because I really we loved London so much. It was a lot of fun. Jorge, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says, enjoy the live stream as always. Thank you for joining here. We're going to do about 25 more minutes or so here, and then we'll end around 5 o'clock Eastern time here. All right, but Revving Indy's asking if there's any schedule for when I do these live streams. I don't really publish it ahead of time because it's I'm always figuring out exactly when I want to do it. But it's always about once a month. I've been trying to do it here this year. And so there will probably be one, I'm guessing, about 4 weeks from now, sometime in early August is when I plan to do the next one. But yeah, these are always a great time. I love hanging out with you guys. A couple other questions here. Travis is asking, I watch a handful of other reviewers. You're definitely one of the best. I appreciate that. He says, do you confer with other reviewers like Savage Geese? Yeah, I actually was able to really love hanging out with Mark. And the other, his partner's name is escaping me right now. I don't know why I don't remember it. But yeah, they're a great team. They're so much fun to hang out with. They're hilarious. I love hanging out with Mark. It's been so much fun getting to know them over the past year. They're such cool guys. I love their comedy. I love their reviews. They're so well done. Savage Geese is awesome, and I'm hoping to work with them again in the future and hang out with them again once press trips come back, if those ever come back in the future. Yeah, I was one of the new car YouTubers I became friends with here in the past year. It was really great. Otherwise, though, there's lots of other car YouTubers, and some of them are reviewers, like Sophie on Redline Reviews. Me and him, text every once in a while. And there's a bunch of other, Jason Fensky of Engineering Explained. I've been friends with him for a good while. Chris Fix, I'm friends with him. And chat with a lot of them, pretty regularly. Eric the Car Guy, Charles, Humble Mechanic, all those guys. I'm really good friends with all of them. They're great. And a lot of other reviewers too that I just see on press drives and things like that I often hang out with. And it's a really good community. I another one I was friends with here. I've been friends with in the past year that I got to meet was the Straight Pipes guys. They're So cool. Yuri and Jacob, they're fantastic. They do such good work again as well. And so it's been great getting to know them here in the past year too. There's lots of good channels out there these days. It's really awesome how the community has developed here over the past few years. And so we have other things here. Jack Sloan says, just joining. Did you guys already talk about the Ford Bronco that will reveal tomorrow? Yeah, we kind of talked about that in the beginning, but I'm excited for it. We kind of already know everything about it for the most part. We've already seen it and all that. So there's not a whole lot that's going to be a surprise, I don't think, but I'm looking forward to seeing everything finally being official and being out there. But I'm actually a little more excited, I think, for the Jeep Wrangler V8 that they just teased recently, which is awesome. ProSim says, I really wish Ford would improve road feel for the GT. It's a shame that's the only flaw of the car. I don't have any issues with it myself personally. I think it's very fun to drive. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a muscle car, so it's not going to be as communicative as like the Civic Type R. That like blew me away with how much I could feel through the steering wheel and through the wheels and stuff. It was just like, that car is so good to drive. But yeah, the Mustang I really love. I don't have any complaints with those personally. I think they're great. But it's always something, there's always things they can improve, but I think they're great just the way they are. Justin, thank you so much for the super chat. And he says, funding your Autobahn visit. I appreciate that. Yeah, hopefully someday that'd be a lot of fun. But nothing here planned for a while. No vacations or anything. Like I said, just trying to move so I can get more garage space and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully we'll do some more trips here in the next couple of years. I really appreciate the super chat, though. It's very kind of you. ProSim says road feeling, meaning I can't tell if it fishtails. I would just keep an eye on whether the car is going straight or not, as far as whether it fishtails. I can feel it getting twitchy on me whenever I'm, pushing it in the bullet and stuff. I don't have any issues with that personally, but maybe it's just different setups depending on different types of Mustangs and stuff. I'm not sure. We have another person asking. Sean asks about second gen 86 news. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but there's no new news. It's just the two different rumors of either it's getting the FA24 motor with the turbo or the FA24 without the turbo. It could be something else entirely, but that's the two rumors I've seen that are the most dominant rumors there. We'll have to see what they do. It's just we've heard it's coming next year thanks to the leaked Toyota product timeline thing that came out a couple of months ago. And so I think July of next year or something, hopefully we'll see the new 86 and hopefully it's awesome. All right, other questions here. We have Revving India says, has coronavirus affected the automobile industry there? Yeah, definitely. All the manufacturing plants were shut down for a couple of months. They're back up and running now, but we'll see. Here in America, COVID is on its second run now and is spiking again in various states. And so we'll have to see if things get shut back down or not. I've basically written off this entire year as far as any plans, doing anything exciting, it's not happening. 2020 is just the year that nothing happens, and it is what it is. Just gotta play the hand we're dealt, unfortunately. But I think manufacturing's gotten back, at least for now. Car sales are rebounding for now. All that kind of stuff. We'll have to see how long that holds up for. But it's definitely not been great. I think like the rest of the world. But I think Americans are a little bit slower to do the things they need to do to get beyond COVID, unlike other countries that have already figured it out and are mostly over it. We're still clinging on to it here, unfortunately. So hopefully things get better soon. But like I said, I just kind of wrote off this entire year, sadly. All right, other things here. The Car Banana says, any advice on affording awesome cars? Just lots of hard work. That's what it was for me with getting my first car. I started working as soon as I possibly could. I started working at 15 at McDonald's because they were one of the few places that hired at 15 because I desperately wanted to buy a WRX and that was my goal. And then I moved over to a car dealership whenever I was able to get my license and move cars around. And it was just a lot of hard work. Basically I would be done with whenever I was done with school for the day in high school, I would then immediately grab something quick to eat and then just work until 9 o'clock at night at the dealership. So it'd be working from 5 to 9 every weeknight usually. working all Saturday on the weekends. Sunday I had off, of course, since most dealers here in PA at least aren't open on Sundays. So Sunday was my only day off. Otherwise, it was just working myself constantly, which killed my social life. I had no girlfriend in high school. I had no social life whatsoever in high school because I was always working because I desperately wanted a sweet car. So that was my sacrifice I was willing to make because I didn't have money from parents or from other things to allow me to get a sweet car. So it was all on me. And so I just kind of worked like crazy until I got it, and it didn't end up getting the WRX. Instead, I ended up getting the Legacy GT Spec B because it came into the dealership that I worked at for the same price as a used WRX, and I couldn't pass it up with the extra horsepower and the extra luxury, so I went with that instead. But yeah, and then even in college, I didn't work during college, but on my breaks, whether it was spring break, fall break, Christmas break, whatever, like I was working like 12 hours a day. In the summer, I'd work 12 hours a day every single day, 6 days a week to afford my fun car. And that's how I did it. It's just lots of exhausting hard work. But it worked out, and I have no regrets with doing that. So Joe is asking kind of an odd question, but do you know anyone up high at Tesla? I know 0 people at Tesla. Unfortunately, they don't really interact with media as far as, press cars or anything like that, unless you're Motor Trend. Aside from Motor Trend or Car and Driver, like no one gets press vehicles from Tesla. They don't care about press vehicles because they have the best hype machine on the planet with their cultish following of, people that drive Teslas, love Teslas, profess their love for Teslas everywhere, defend Teslas endlessly. They do not need any marketing at Tesla. And you have Elon Musk that constantly keeps them in the headlines as well. So they don't need to do press cars. So I don't know anyone at Tesla. All the Tesla reviews I've done, the Model 3 was Sophions of Redline Reviews. The Model S was a Turo vehicle that I rented, and that's how I got to review that. Otherwise, I've never had Tesla's never said a single word to me. And I'd like to work with them though. It'd be great to review all the other, the Model Y and the Roadster eventually, if that ever comes, and the Semi. And well, I don't know about the Semi, but at least the Cybertruck would be fun. So, I don't know anyone now, unfortunately. Christian says, do you miss the Subaru X fan name? It's nostalgic, but I don't miss it because it really held the channel back. There were so many car companies that we were like, we would love to work with you. We would love to send you press vehicles. We cannot have someone with Subaru in their name, trying to review other things. It was just basically, it was like, hey, I'm biased. I love WRXs. Like that's a horrible basis for a review channel, because it's like, okay, well, this person's going to immediately compare it to a WRX or think the WRX is better than everything else. And, thankfully, those who watched the channel back then knew that like I wasn't biased towards WRXs, and I, loved a lot of other vehicles, but that was kind of the issue there. And also I just kind of outgrew the name because I'm not a huge WRX fan anymore anyway, because again, they've kind of not innovated it really in the past few years. And so, and I think there's better, sedans out there. If you don't need all-wheel drive, there's a lot of other, really fun vehicles for the same price that I absolutely love, like the Veloster N and stuff like that. And so Jag is saying, have you reviewed the Focus ST? I have. I've done, I think, 2 reviews of a Focus ST. I did when they first came out, like a 2013, and then I did a 2017 whenever they had the refreshed front bumper, both thanks to very kind owners who offered them to me. I did review 2 Focus STs already, and they're really fun cars. It's a really solid vehicle. Speaking of WRX alternatives, that's a really good one right there. All right, other questions here. Let me see. Mark says he still remembers the Subaru fan times. It wasn't too long ago. It has been 3 years since I changed the channel name though. Time flies, but it's been a little while. Jason says it's a shame Subaru doesn't send you press cars still. They actually did start sending me press cars here back in the fall. The first one they sent me was the S209 STI, which I did that review. That was a lot of fun. And then they sent me the Legacy, regular Legacy, and then the Outback XT. And that's it. So I've asked them for a 2020 WRX just because some people have said that with the handling package, it's much better. I haven't driven one. I'd like to try it. So I asked them for that. Haven't had anything yet. I also asked for a Forester because I just haven't reviewed one of those yet of this new gen version, and a new Impreza since they just did that little refresh on those. So haven't had any of those yet, but they do send me press cars now, which I'm kind of surprised because for the longest time they did not want to even give me a second look, but now they finally are giving me some stuff, which is great. So yeah, I'm happy about that. ProSim says Subaru needs to thank the originator of the Subaru BRZ YouTube content. Yeah, I was like the first person, I think, to post, their ownership experience for the BRZ, and it was a lot of fun. I do miss that BRZ a decent amount. Yeah, but he says, because of you, TJ Hunt exists, and because of TJ Hunt, every BRZ/FRS owner wants to mod their cars. I think the BRZ and the FRS, though, are very tuner friendly. If I didn't do that, I'm sure there would have been others that did, and the tuner craze would have, really taken off with those no matter what. But yeah, it's awesome that TJ Hunt was inspired, way back when by the channel and stuff, and it's awesome to see him doing such big things now as well. I bumped into him at SEMA last fall, and it was awesome to kind of chat with him for a couple of minutes. He still seems very cool and down to earth, which is great, and it was awesome to kind of say hello to him very briefly. David says, do you have any plans on reviewing the Veloster N with the DCT? I'm hoping to. It's just a matter of whenever Hyundai sends one and, gets them here in the States and stuff. But they were pretty good about sending me a Veloster N. It took me a little while to get one. I didn't review one until last summer. But hopefully, I'm guessing that would be a car I won't review until next spring. I could be wrong, but maybe they'll get it to me by the fall if they're really quick with them. But I would say probably that'll be a next year review for sure. Bob says, why did Subaru stop sending you press cars? They didn't stop sending them. They just ran out of their fleet. So the fleet only has a certain amount of cars every few months. And so they have them in the fleet for a year or so, and then they get new cars. And so right now, the things that Subaru's interested in promoting are the new Legacy and Outback. So that's why I had those two. But they just don't have any new stuff to send, unfortunately, until they get their new press vehicles in, which I'm guessing they'll maybe want to promote the new Crosstrek, the new Impreza. Maybe I'll get some of those. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah. Charles and Amy Little said, I saw a couple driving a 2020 Toyota 86 today, walked over and talked to them a while, told them one of my friends used to have a BRZ and loved it. They highly recommended it. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. They're fantastic cars. So cool. All right. Other questions here. Sean says, I had to unsubscribe to TJ, bored watching him buying coffee, but love your show, Matt, longtime fan. Yeah, the intro. I appreciate you watching it. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I never got into vlogging myself. I don't do anything interesting enough to vlog. I know there's lots of people that go on crazy adventures or have tons of car friends that they're always racing and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any of that, so my life just doesn't accommodate vlogging very well, I guess. But I just don't think anyone cares about me going to get McDonald's or something. Like, it's not worth filming, in my opinion, but it works very well for a lot of people, and more power to him. I mean, TJ's doing huge things. He's got Ferraris and all that kind of stuff. I dream of one day owning a Ferrari, so we'll see if I ever even get there. I probably won't, but he's doing great stuff. So, I mean, it might not be to everyone's taste, but he's killing it with the views and the subscribers and stuff. He's doing great, and I'm really happy for him, though. Fastline says, do I have PS4? I do not. I have an Xbox One, and that's what I've been gaming on here. I used to love the Sony stuff back in the day, but actually Xbox 360 is what switched me over from the Sony side because of Test Drive Unlimited. I really wanted that game in the first one when it came out on Xbox 360, and I've been an Xbox person ever since. So that's my story there with gaming. ProSim says, do I play Modern Warfare? I do not. I have very little time to play video games anyway. And the games that I do play are generally, like I said, I played the Mafia games. I mentioned this earlier in the live stream. I played the Mafia games recently, and I'm excited for the remaster of those. And I usually just do other kind of games. GTA Online I play every once in a while. LA Noire is one of my favorite games of all time, that kind of stuff. Usually not too many racing games. All right. See more people saying they love the channel. I really appreciate that. We have Jeff Lamb says 2017 BMW M2 or 2016 BMW M235i. Well, if you need all-wheel drive, the M235i is great. I reviewed one of those, and it's a fantastic car. but I think the M2 is a lot more fun, and it's just a little more playful. The M2 kind of reminds me of a BRZ with more power. Like the kind of my hierarchy of like what cars I would buy, like going from like, the Miata, which is like my favorite sub $30,000 sports car right now. If you were going beyond the Miata, I would probably move up to, something like a, Mustang GT or something like that in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. If you're comfortable with something in the high 30 to low 40,000, you don't want a muscle car, M2 all day. Again, it's German. Used German stuff makes me a little nervous because I do like to have electrical gremlins. But the M2 is fantastic. If I wasn't driving a Bullet, and if I think I would still rather have a Supra, but if I didn't have a Bullet or a Supra, I would probably have an M2. That would probably be one of my picks. I love the M2 so much. They're so much fun. So I would pick one of those, I think, personally, over the M235i. Brandon says Civic Type R or G37. They're polar opposites. One's luxurious, rear-wheel drive, more relaxed. The other is razor sharp, front wheel drive, crazy turbo, all that kind of stuff. Between the two, I like newer cars better, so I would go for the Civic Type R. I also just loved daily driving the Civic Type R that I had a couple of weeks ago, and so I would pick that over the G37 personally, even though I usually prefer rear-wheel drive stuff. And we have Jazzbo says, do you like Crosstrek by Subaru? I would think with hills and snow in Pittsburgh, Crosstrek would be popular in your area. Yeah, the Crosstrek, they're everywhere in Pittsburgh. My parents actually bought one last year. They really liked it as well. They are very, very popular. My mother-in-law also has a Crosstrek. So both sides of the parents have a Crosstrek. They love them a lot. And they're a solid little vehicle here in Pittsburgh. Very good choice. And the Car Banana says there's a new Test Drive Unlimited game coming out. I saw that just last week. Yeah, I'm excited for the new Test Drive Unlimited. It sounds like it's going to be a while, but whenever that comes out, I will definitely be pre-ordering that one. I'm really excited because that's one thing that even Forza Horizon, I think, kind of missed out on. Like, my thing that I love is like having my dream house and my dream garage to go with the dream cars, and having the open world stuff is really fun in Forza Horizon. I know you can buy the houses in Forza Horizon, but it wasn't as showcased as I would have liked it to be in Horizon. And so I hope that Unlimited kind of leans into that a little bit more and allows you to customize your driver a little bit more, all that kind of stuff. Horizon was really good, and I really liked it a lot. I did play it a good bit last winter, but I'm really excited for the new Test Drive Unlimited. All right, we have... Brandon says the G37 would smoke the Type R. Probably, if that's something that's important to you, but they wouldn't be super far off of their performance because the G37 is not like wildly faster than a Type R or anything. Rafi says, would you get either of the next-gen consoles? Yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends on what games. Like if Test Drive Unlimited comes on both systems, I would be tempted by the PS5 because I think it just looks a lot better than the Xbox, the new Xbox, whatever that's called. So I probably would rather, I'd be interested in trying out the Sony again, but I don't know. I probably won't buy either of them because they're way expensive and I never have time to game most of the time. So probably won't get anything anytime soon, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, we got about 5 or 4 more minutes here to go as my voice is going out from all the talking a little bit. This is a lot of talking, but I love doing this with you guys. It's great. But yeah, 4 more minutes here we have. So we have a question. Will the MX-5 get the new Mazda 2.5-liter turbo? I doubt it. I think, the reason why the Mazda 3 got it is because it's an easy copy and paste thing. So you have the same engine, the same transmission, the same all-wheel drive system as the CX-5. So as long as it fit in the Mazda 3, that was literally a plug-and-play thing. You literally drop it out of CX-5, bolt it up to the Mazda 3, wash your hands and call it a day. Like, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it's really, not much more complicated than that. So it's very easy with that stuff, but moving it to the Miata, which is a much smaller vehicle, changing all that stuff is going to be, I think, a lot harder for the Miata. So I don't think they're going to do that. And honestly, I don't think they need a turbo. If you need to have forced induction in your Miata, you can do it. Like my buddy Jason Fensky on Engineering Explained just did it with his Miata here this past month or so. You can add more power if you want, but the 2019 Miata with that new engine is so amazing on its own. It doesn't need anything more. I think the Miata is perfect the way it is from these 2019s and up. I love them. If you watch my 2019 Miata review, you will know how much I loved it. I was in heaven driving that thing. It was so much fun. So I hope they don't even bother adding an engine because I don't think it needs it. I think it's standard the way it is. Dan says, what car is on your bucket list next? Going for an F-Type, hopefully a used convertible F-Type is my next car to add to the garage. I'd still love to get some classic cars someday, and eventually I'd love to get some higher end stuff if I can ever afford it. I'm a huge Ferrari fan. I'd love to get a GTC4 Lusso someday. I'd love to get an 812 Superfast, or better yet, an 812 GTS someday if I'm ever wildly wealthy enough to afford that, which probably will never happen. But that's my ultimate dream car, is a Ferrari 812. Those things are amazing. And if you're looking for another good car review channel, by the way, I love Harry's Garage. They just did a road trip in an 812 Superfast through the south of France. That was like 35 minutes for that video, and that was one of the most enjoyable videos that I've watched on YouTube in a good while, just because it was just a normal, down to earth, just him being like, here's my road trip in a Ferrari, here's what it's like. And it's like, oh, I love the 812 so much, and his video was really well done. I love his channel. Yeah, so that's my dream someday. We'll see if it ever happens. But yeah, so got another minute or so here. Someone's asking, do you think Ford is right to ban TFL? I kind of caught a little bit of that. I didn't catch the full story, but if Ford really did just ban TFL because they posted like Broncos spy pictures, that's insane. Yeah, that's definitely crappy. I don't know why they would ban TFL, especially considering they are such a huge channel. You would think you would want to have TFL on your side. They're another car reviewer, by the way, that I work with the AVA group. There's a bunch of us that we all work together. And Roman of the Fast Lane Car is fantastic. He's such a great guy. Happy to call him a friend as well. And so I'm really bummed that Ford's not being cool with them. That's kind of a bummer. Yeah, not sure. It's just kind of crazy to ban anyone from anything like that, unless someone's deliberately like wrecking cars or something. I don't know why you would ever ban someone. It's kind of crazy. But Sean G, thank you so much for the super sticker. And yeah, he says bye. And yeah, that's about it here. About 2 hours it's been. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this live stream. Sorry I didn't get to all the questions, but hopefully I got to a lot of them here, and I always enjoyed this. And stay tuned for one here in August. I'll be doing another one with you guys. But until then, I hope you all continue to stay safe and healthy, and please continue to watch the videos and subscribe and stay up to date on everything. You guys are what makes this possible still, and I very much appreciate you guys hanging out here with me here on a Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at. And I hope you guys have a great week this week. And yeah, just continue to stay safe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.